Hi guys, today we will do the Rocky server plus Ubuntu client for DNS services. Let's begin. Hello guys, so now we go to the first step, which is the host name. So we check the host name with the host name command. So by default, the VirtualBox user will be using VBox. And then we need to change that. So we use sudo nano /etc/hostname, which is an empty file by default. So we add a full qualified domain name into it, which is we have the radio moments, which is the name, and then the domain, which is blackhat.org. So we use blackhat.org, or you can use your domain. And then next we check it by cat /etc/hostname, which is the same file, and then it shows the radio moments. So it means it changed successfully. So next step will be building the network. So after you set up the host name of the Rocky server, so you can see both Rocky server and Ubuntu client in the VirtualBox. So you need to set up the network. So you go to the tools. So you go to NetworkManager. So you will see the network. Then you create a new network with your desired name and your desired IP prefixes. So I choose 192.168.100.0/24, and then enable DHCP. Okay, so we apply, and then we go to the settings of two virtual machines, and then we choose the network, and then we choose network, and then we choose the name of your set up network for both virtual machines, and then you just click OK. So after setting up the network, we can check the IP address. So we use ifconfig to check that it's 192.168.100.4, and then we check the host name again, so that we can add the host name into the host file with the IP address. So we sudo nano /etc/host. So 192.168.100.4 at the last line of the host, and then we add our host name into it, the full qualified domain name. So radianmoment.blackhat.org. So we Control X, and then Y, and then enter. And then we can check the host by using cat and then /etc/host, and then it will show all the hosts. So it's there. So it means that we added it successfully. So in the Ubuntu side, there's no NetTools, so there's no ifconfig. So we have to install the NetTools first using the command sudo apt-get install net-tools. So after it's installed, we can use ifconfig to check for the IP address, which shows that 192.168.100.5. So we also try to ping the Rocky server again to check the connectivity, which shows that 5 packets transmitted, 0% packet loss. So after that, we change the host name and the host. So first is host name, which is the same. We're using sudo nano /etc/hostname. Then we add client Ubuntu into the file. And then we also change the /etc/host file to add the host. So first, we will change the cursor to the last line, and then we add 192.168.100.5, and then we add our own fully qualified domain name. So this time we use radianclient.blackhat.org, and then the domain must be the same, which also blackhat.org. After that, we try to ping our domain name ourselves. So we ping radianclient.blackhat.org. Then it shows that 5 packets transmitted with 0% loss. So back to the Rocky server. So after that, we need to ensure that the IP at the Rocky server is static so that it does not change by the DHCP. So first we have to install the network manager using sudo rpm-q and then network manager N and M capital letters to check that it versions and is there already downloaded. So it shows that already downloaded, and then we start the services by using sudo systemctl enable network manager. So it's enable, and then we're using another command to start it. So we use sudo systemctl start network manager. And then after that, we check for the status of the network manager, which is active, running, and enabled. And then there is no red fonts at the end, so it shows that there is no error. And after that, we check again for the IP address to know that which static IP address that we should put. So ifconfig. So the IP address is still 192.168.100.4. So this shows using the sudo nm CLI device status, we can see that there is an ENP0S3. So this is the device's name. So after that, we go into this device config file. We're using sudo ls-l to show all the file inside. Use /etc/network manager /system connections. So it only shows one file name, which is the ENP0S3. So our predictions is correct. So after that, we nano into this file to change the configurations of the static IP address. So we're using sudo nano /etc/network manager /the system connections and then /enp0s3.nm connection. So that's the file name and the extensions. That's only for the network manager. So after that, we need to add the address DNS and then ignore auto DNS and then the method into the IPv4 sections. So we're adding the address is 192.168.100.4/24, which is the network that we set, the subnet. And then we have to add also the default gateway, which is 192.168.100.1. And then we also need to add the DNS. First is the Google DNS, is 8.8.8.8, and then semicolon, and then 8.8.4.4. And then we also add one more our address ourselves because we need to do a DNS server. So we add first also 192.168.100.4, and then we have to ignore the auto DNS become true because we need to ignore the system to refresh the DNS itself. And then the method will become manual because we need to ensure that the IP address does not change and become static. After that, we restart the network manager using sudo restart network manager. And then we check the status of the network manager to ensure that it's enabled and actively running and there is no error. And then after that, we check for the detail of the network manager using the nmcli command. So after we know that the DNS configuration is there, which means that we already successfully changed the DNS configurations. And then we show detail into the devices by using nmcli connection show the ENP0S3. So it will show the particular devices. So the IPv4 method is manual, and the DNS is also the same, which is 8.8.8, and also our address ourselves. Now we nano the forward file, which the naming is very important. So we name it by FWD, retrieve forward, and then dot, and then your domain name. In my case, will be the blackhat.org, and then we're using the extension db at the last. So we're using .db. So that's the file name for the forward file. And next we into it. After that, we will copy that in and then paste into here. So after we paste, we will change the attributes in the text. So this is my change version. So first is the radianmoment.blackhat.org, which is the host name that I set on this Rocky server. So next also we have to change the root. So the root.blackhat.org is all is the same, just the domain name must change by yours. Next line is no need to change. And then until the next paragraph is start with the origin, which means alias, and then tab in, and then ns, and then tab, and then also the host name of the DNS server. So first host name will be the radian moment. So we add the next paragraph into radian moment, tab in, tab a, and then tab 192.168.100.4. So to show that this radian moment is the radianmoment.blackhat.org, if it is point to the IP address of 192.168.100.4, to show that this domain name is point to that IP address. So that's a forward zone. And then same for the Radian client. So Radian client is the same blackhat.org. That's why the both server or client domain name must be the same, because in this case must be the same. So next, we have to add another file into the same directory. We're using the nano rvs dot, and then in this case it will be 100.168.192.db. But in your case, it depends on what IP address that you use. So we reverse the IP address, the first three parts of the IP address only. So no need the last part in my case, because I'm using /24, the whole subnet. So in my case is start with the 100 and then 168 and only then the 192. So that's in my case the reverse, because we need to reverse in the reverse file, we need to reverse the IP address. So also the same, another link I will put at the descriptions. So we copy these references, and then we paste into that file. So after we deleted the origin, it's almost the same as the full file at the first part especially. So the first part is the same radian moment blackhat.org, and then the root blackhat.org, and then the radian moment.blackhat.org is at the alias ns, and then the only difference is here, which is the 4 and 5, which means because the file we particular is 192.168.100, right? So there's no the last digit. That's why the file name don't have the last digit, because the last digit is here. So the 4 means 0.4 is point to the radianmoment.blackhat.org, which is the Rocky server, and then 0.5 is the client IP address. So that's why it's using that 4 and 5. After that, restart the whole thing, systemctl restart name. And then after that, we check the status to ensure that there is no error. So it's active and then enabled, and then no red font at the end of the line. So next step is to change the firewall configurations of the Rocky server to allow the DNS services working. The command is firewall-cmd-permanent-add-port equals to 53/TCP. So we do both for TCP and UDP, and then we reload the firewall using the firewall-cmd-reload. And it shows that it's all successful. So after that, we need to change the DNS server of our network manager configuration. Also the file before this, which is the /etc/networkmanager/system connection/enp0s3. But this time we need to ensure that the 192.168.100.4, which is this Rocky server static IP address, is at the first before the Google DNS server. So we have to ensure that, and then next we have to nano into the /etc/resolve.config to ensure that the resolve.config already have the name server 192.168.100.4 in the file. And then the IP address is first before the Google DNS address. So after that, we restart the name services, which is the DNS services. And then we check the status. So it has no problem. it's enabled running, and then no DNS, any error. After that, we check the both Rocky server and also the Ubuntu client using the nslookup to ensure that this domain name is point to the IP address, correct IP address. So we nslookup the first one, the radianmoment.blackhat.org. So it shows the server name is correct. The address is also correct. So we try to ping first, the radianmoment.blackhat.org. So it shows that 6 packets transmitted with 0% packet loss. So it has no problem. So next, we have to set the DNS server at the Ubuntu site. But in the Ubuntu site, we're using the GUI method. So we go to the settings, and then go to the wired, and then we click the wired settings, and then we add the DNS server IP address, which is 192.168.100.4. So first we nslookup first, nslookup radianmoment.blackhat.org. So the name is correct, and then the address is also correct. We ping the radianmoment.blackhat.org, and then 5 packet transmitted with 0% packet loss. So that's all for our DNS server tutorial. So thank you for watching.